my mother-in-law, mocked my store-bought dessert a tea family dinner, then demanded my savings for my sis-in-law's party. "We're family after all," she said. But what I did next made her choke on her own words. I never thought my breaking point would come during a family dinner, but here I was gripping my wine glass so hard, I feared it might shatter. "My name is Lila." And this was the moment I realized I'd married into a war zone disguised as a family. "So thoughtful of you to bring store-bought dessert." "My mother-in-law," Celeste said, or smile sharp as a knife, though I always taught my children that homemade shows true caring. I watched my husband, Ethan, shrink into his chair, suddenly fascinated by his pot roast 6 months of marriage, and he still couldn't stand up to his mother. The crystal chandelier above us cast shadows that made everyone look slightly sinister, especially Bianca, my sister-in-law, who was practically gleaming with satisfaction. "I had back-to-back meetings today," I explained, though I knew it wouldn't matter. "The bakery downtown makes wonderful." "I'm sure you're very busy," Bianca cut in, twirling her engagement ring. "It must be exhausting trying to balance a career with being a proper wife." Could never dig was clear. I wasn't living up to the Morgan family standards, a long sip of wine, remembering my mother's advice, kill them with kindness. But kindness was getting harder by the minute. "Speaking of proper," Celeste continued, stabbing her lips with a monogrammed napkin, "we need to discuss Bianca's engagement party as family. We all need to contribute appropriately." The way she emphasized appropriately made my stomach turn. I'd heard through the grapevine that Celeste had already drained Ethan's savings account for Bianca's wedding, all in the name of family duty. I smiled, meeting her gaze. "We'd love to help, however we can afford to." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Celeste's perfectly lined eyes narrowed, and Bianca is cluttered against her plate. "I just committed the cardinal sin in the Morgan household, suggesting there might be limits to our financial obligations." As I looked around the table at their faces, I realized this wasn't just about money or homemade desserts, this was about power, and I just challenged the queen. Following weekend, I decided to host a dinner party at our house. Maybe if I could show Celeste and Bianca that I was capable of being the perfect hostess, things would change. I spent hours preparing everything from scratch. "No store-bought desserts this time. Tablecloth is crooked," Bianca announced the moment she walked in, adjusting it with sharp tugs that nearly toppled my carefully arranged centerpiece. Her fiancé Max shot me an apologetic look, stayed silent. "Think it looks lovely," Max offered quietly, earning himself a sharp glance from both Bianca and Celeste. The evening spiraled downward from there. Every detail I'd meticulously planned became ammunition. The wine wasn't properly aged. The soup was too salty. Apparently my choice of music was trying too hard to be sophisticated. "Remember when you made that beautiful cocoa in for Christmas, darling?" Celeste said to Bianca, completely ignoring the roast. "I just served." Now that was a proper dinner party. I watched Ethan push his food around his plate, his silence deafening. When Celeste started critique in my choice of silverware, he suddenly became fascinated with his phone. The same way he disappeared behind his pot roast last week. "Actually," Mother Bianca chimed in, "King of Christmas, I was thinking we should discuss the holiday arrangements now. Max and I would love to host this year." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Ethan and I had already planned to host Christmas, our first as a married couple. We talked about it for months. "What a wonderful idea," Celeste beamed. "It would be so special to have Christmas at Bianca's new house. Don't you agree?" Ethan turned to my husband, waiting for him to speak up, to remember our plans, to show any sign that he was still on my side. Instead, he nodded and mumbled, "Whatever everyone wants." That's when I knew this wasn't just about winning over my in-laws anymore. This was about saving my marriage from a family that was slowly suffocating it. As I watched Bianca and Celeste exchange triumphant looks across my carefully set table, something inside me hardened. They wanted a war. Fine. They were about to learn. I wasn't as easy to dismiss as they thought. I was grabbing coffee with Sarah, my closest friend from work, when I overheard them, 2 tables over. Bianca's voice carried clearly. "She's obviously after the family money. Have you seen how she dresses? Those designer bags aren't buying themselves." My hand froze around my coffee cup as I listened to my sister-in-law tear apart my marriage to her lunch companion. I'd recognized Max's sister Emma's voice agreeing with her, spreading the poison further into both families. Poor Ethan. Bianca continued, not bothering to lower her voice. Mother tried to warn him before the wedding, but how men can be when they're distracted. At least she can't touch the trust fund without Mother's approval. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Don't let them see you cry," she whispered, but I wasn't crying. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt oddly calm. Everything suddenly made sense. The constant questions about my career, pointed comments about my spending habits, Celeste's insistence on being involved in our financial decisions. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Bianca's had snapped around face, shifting from shock to a practiced smile. "Lila, what a surprise. Is that what you really think of me?" My voice was steady, surprising. "Even myself, that I married your brother for money. Don't be dramatic." Bianca waved her hand dismissively. "We're just looking out for family interests. You understand, don't you? Family interests?" I laughed, but it came out harsh. "You mean your interests? Tell me. Does Max know how much you've been spending on your engagement party, or about the credit card debt you're hiding?" Face went white. I'd seen the statements while helping Ethan with some family paperwork. Bianca didn't know I had access to. "You're just jealous," she hissed, standing up, "trying to turn everyone against me because you can't stand that Ethan had a family before you." "No, Bianca. I'm done trying to be part of your family. But if you want to play this game, remember, I have nothing left to lose." I walked out, leaving her sputtering behind me. My phone buzzed. Celeste's number. The war was about to escalate. This time, I was ready. I'd been sitting in my car for 20 minutes, staring at our empty driveway, when Celeste's voicemail played again on speaker. "How dare you threaten my daughter after everything we've done for you? This is how you repay us." Then needs to know what kind of woman he really married. Front door opened and Ethan's silhouette appeared. He'd been distant since I'd confronted Bianca at the cafe 3 days ago. Now I knew why they'd gotten to him. First, I walked into our house, the home we'd chosen together, now feeling like enemy territory. Ethan stood in our kitchen gripping a manila folder. "This about you investigating Bianca as finances." His voice was quiet, dangerous. "This about me being a gold digger." Counter, dropping my bag on the counter. "Were you going to tell me that's what your family thinks? Or were you hoping I'd never find out?" "That's different." How my laugh came out hollow. "How is it different?" "Ethan, your sister spreads lies about me. Your mother treats me like a criminal. You just stand there, always standing there, saying nothing." He ran his hand through his hair. A gesture I used to find endearing. "They're my family, Lila. And what am I?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. My phone buzzed. A text from Max. "We need to talk about Bianca, about everything." "I need time to think," Ethan finally said, avoiding my eyes. "Maybe you should stay with Sarah for a few days." Felt something break inside me, but not in the way I expected. Instead of pain, there was clarity. My husband really looked at him and saw what I'd been avoiding for months. A man who would always choose his family's version of reality over mine. "You're right," I said, surprising us both. "I should go. But, Ethan, while I'm gone, ask your mother about the trust fund she's been holding over my head. The one I didn't know existed until your sister started running her mouth about it." His head snapped up, confusion crossing his face. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. My phone buzzing again with Max's incoming call. It was time to find out just how deep this family's secrets went. Cafe where I met, Max was nearly empty, which suited our conversation perfectly. He slid a stack of papers across the table, his hands shaking slightly. "Bianca doesn't know. I found these," he said quietly. "She's been forging my signature on loan applications, the engagement party. It's just the tip of the iceberg." I flipped through the documents, my coffee growing cold, credit card statements, bank loans, and something else, transfers from Ethan accounts to Bianca, dating back months before our wedding. My phone buzzed. Text from Celeste. "Dinner tonight, non-negotiable. We need to discuss your contribution to the engagement party." "There's more," Max said, watching my face. "Celeste has been enabling this for years. She uses the family trust fund to cover beyond his debts, then holds it over everyone's heads." Even Ethan cafe door chimed. Bianca walked in, freezing when she saw us. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide her pallor going on here. Her voice wavered between sweet and threatening. Just getting to know my future sister-in-law better, I replied, sliding the papers into my bag. Max has been sharing some fascinating family history. Beyond his eyes darted between us, landing on Max's guilty expression. Whatever she's told you about me is a lie, she said to him, but her voice cracked. I haven't told him anything, Bianca. Your bank statements did all the talking. She grabbed Max's arm, her nails digging in. We're leaving. Now, my phone buzzed again. Mother says you're causing problems. Please just apologize and pay for your share. For me, I looked up at Bianca, still clutching Max's arm at her desperation to maintain control. Thought about Ethan always choosing the path of least resistance. The engagement party is in 2 days, Bianca hissed. Don't ruin this for me, or I swear. What I stood up, gathering my things, spread more rumors, drain more accounts. I wonder what Max would think about the real cost of this party. I walked out, leaving Bianca sputtering threats behind me. Tonight's dinner with Celeste loomed ahead, a showdown I'd been avoiding for months. But now, armed with proof of their manipulation, I was ready. Them try to force my hand. They were about to learn that some people are more dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. The engagement party sparkled with expensive champagne and fake smiles. I stood in the corner of the grand ballroom, watching Celeste work, the crowd like a conductor leading her orchestra. Ethan hadn't spoken to me since I arrived, choosing instead to hover near his sister, like a protective shadow time for the speeches. Celeste's voice rang out across the room, and a special announcement. My stomach clenched. I'd seen that predatory smile before. First, we must acknowledge the generous contributions that made this evening possible. Celeste continued, her eyes finding mine, though some family members seem reluctant to share the financial burden. The room grew quiet, felt dozens of eyes turned toward me. Mother then warned, but his voice was weak. No, let's be honest. Celeste pressed on. Layla has shown her true colors, refusing to contribute while spreading vicious rumors about Bianca's finances. Pulled the folder from my purse. You want honesty, Celeste? Talk about where the money for this party really came from. Layla, don't. Then grab my arm, please. I yanked free. Your sister forged Max's signature for loans. She's been stealing from your accounts for months, and your mother's been covering it up. The room erupted in whispers. Beyond his face crumpled while Max stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to his lips. How dare you? Celeste advanced toward me. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done. I laughed. You mean like draining Ethan's savings or spreading rumors that I'm a gold digger enough? His voice cut through the chaos. Turned to me, his face hard. You need to leave. Now, are you serious? I stared at him, searching for any sign of the man I'd married. You're choosing them. Even now they're my family, he said quietly. And what am I? He looked away. And in that silence I heard everything I needed to know. I dropped the folder at Celeste's feet, documents spilling across the marble floor, like confetti. Congratulations, Celeste. You win. Pulled off my wedding ring and placed it on top of the scattered papers. He's all yours. As I walked out, I heard Max's voice rise above the murmurs. Is it true? Bianca? Did you forge my signature? Sometimes, winning means walking away. Sometimes revenge is letting people face the consequences of their own actions. 3 days after the engagement party implosion, I was packing the last of my things when someone pounded on my front door. I opened it to find Max looking disheveled and determined. You need to come with me, he said. Now, I'm done with Morgan family drama. Bianca is threatening to kill herself. She's locked herself in her apartment after I called off the engagement. Celeste, is they're making everything worse? I should have felt vindicated. Instead, my stomach twisted. It's not my problem anymore. No, but you're the only one who has all the pieces. The only one who saw through their act. His voice cracked. Please. 20 minutes later, we stood outside Bianca's apartment. Celeste was already there, hammering on the door. This is your fault. She spun toward me. If you hadn't enough, my voice cut through her accusations. Your daughter forged signatures, stole money, and destroyed relationships. And you enabled every bit of it. I was protecting my family. You were protecting your control. I moved past her to the door. Bianca, Slyla, silence, then a muffled voice. Come to gloat. No. Came to tell you I understand. Press my hand against the door. The pressure to be perfect, to meet impossible expectations, to be worthy of the Morgan name. Something thudded against the other side of the door. You don't know anything about it. I know your mother's love comes with conditions. I know what it's like to never feel good enough. The door cracked open. Bianca mascara streaked, face appeared. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. I just couldn't keep up with mother's expectations. Bianca, darling, I never. Celeste started. Don't. Bianca's voice hardened. Just don't. She opened the door, fully revealing the chaos inside: scattered papers, empty bottles, and in the center, a stack of unpaid bills and maxed-out credit cards. I'm calling a therapist, Max said quietly. This sense now turned to leave, but Bianca caught my arm. Why did you come? Because revenge isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about forcing them to face the truth. I walked away from the Morgan family for the second and final time, leaving them to face their own reflections in the wreckage of their carefully constructed facade. 6 months after walking away from the Morgan family, found myself sorting through the last box of divorce papers. When an unfamiliar envelope caught my eye, the return address was from a rehabilitation center, but the handwriting was unmistakably Celeste. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. Dear Lila, it began. Bianca's therapist suggested we write letters to those we've wronged. I've written and burned 17 versions of this one. I sat down, my hands shaking slightly. I spent my life building walls to protect my children, never realizing I was actually building a prison. When you arrived, you threatened everything, not because you were wrong for Ethan, but because you were strong enough to see through our carefully constructed facade. The doorbell rang through the window. I saw Ethan standing on my porch, looking uncertain, kept reading. Bianca is doing better. She's learning to live without the weight of my expectations. Max visits her sometimes. Ethan here. The writing became shakier. Ethan finally told me about the kind of mother I've been, kind of family. I opened the door before Ethan could ring again. I got the signed papers, he said quietly. I just wanted to return this. He held out my old house key. House Bianca, I asked, surprising us both. Better therapies helping Mom too. Actually paused. I'm sorry, I wasn't stronger. I'm not key. Sometimes we need to lose everything to find ourselves. After he left, I finished Celeste's letter. I won't ask for forgiveness. Instead, I'll thank you. Your revenge wasn't in exposing our secrets, but in forcing us to face them. You saved my family by breaking it apart. I folded the letter and placed it in my new life box, not to hold on to the past, but to remember that sometimes the greatest act of revenge is showing someone their own reflection and walking away. That night, I deleted the Morgan family from my phone contacts. As I did, a text from Bianca appeared. Thank you for showing me how to be strong. I smiled but didn't respond. Some chapters need to stay closed, even if they taught us how to write better ones.